What's up guys, in this video we're going to talk about middlewares. Essentially I'm talking about Laravel middleware, but I want to discuss it as a concept so you can implement this concept anywhere in your software. So this is one of the most interesting and useful concept to understand. It will save you a lot of time for building some components such as like authorization, IP filtering, data filtering, CRS, and localist switching. So while going through these videos, we'll look at some practical example of Laravel middleware as well. So at the end of this video, I'm sure you will be able to implement middlewares in all of its form. So yeah, let's get started. So first of all, what is a middleware? So middleware provides a mechanism for inspecting and filtering HTTP requests entering your application. So you can actually think of it as a protective layer outside your application code. So every request that actually comes to your goes and touches your application code, so it actually passes all the middleware. So each ring you can consider it as middleware. So when request is coming, incoming request actually passes through every middleware. It touches your application code, your response is generated, and the response actually then goes back through the middlewares as well. So it will go through this first middleware, then the second, and then the last one. And if any of middleware actually reject your request based on request, so the response will be sent from middleware and it will not actually touch your application code. So yeah, this is the overall concept of the middleware that we use. So middlewares are actually everywhere. So I have actually worked on all of the framework that I actually mentioned here: Django, Spring, Laravel, Symfony G, .NET, MVC, and Node.js. So all of these frameworks actually use middleware in some of its form, or some actually use is exactly in this form that we will discuss here, but some use it slightly differently, but the overall concept is the same. So the thing is, like, you can think of these middleware as an onion ring. So the onion ring is like, so the request actually goes through all the middlewares and touches its core, which is application code, and then it generates the response. So what is the data inside the request that actually a middleware can access or checks for? So the data inside the request is usually cookies, your get or post parameter, your files or header. So for example, in the case of Laravel, I will actually show you this example as well. So in the case of Laravel, the first middleware actually touches is like encrypt or decrypt cookies middleware. Let's actually look at this as an example. So for example, if you go here, kernel.php, so if you come here in the global middleware, in the web middleware, so it actually encrypt the cookies. So for it will come here. So it encrypt the incoming request cookies, and when the request is going back, it actually decrypt the cookies as well. So yeah, this is one example. I just wanted to show you actually here. If you go to the handle method here, yeah, so here you can see. So this is the part actually you can decompose this into two lines so you can understand it better. So here, and so it actually, when the request is incoming, it actually decrypt the request. Actually decrypt the request cookies, and then the response is generated. And when the response is being sent to the user, so it encrypt the cookies again. So yeah, this is actually the concept. So this is the first concept. Then you can actually use authorization middleware to see like if the user is authenticated or not based, and authorization is actually done based on the cookie. And then there is a trim string middleware. So what it does is, so it takes your request data and see like if there are empty strings outside in your empty like spaces in your string at the end of your string or in the beginning of your string, it actually trim that. And so you can see it here as well. If you go to kernel.php, you can see like there is a trim string middleware. So it runs on every request. It's a global middleware. And yeah, this is one more example: convert empty strings into null. So it checks if there is an empty string, and so it will convert it into null. So your application code actually stays consistent, and you don't have to look for empty strings and then you have to look for null string. So yeah, this is one more example. So this is actually the flow of middleware in any Laravel application. So this example I just wanted to show you that so you understand the concept a little bit better. So whenever your request is going through, so it actually, Laravel actually creates a pipeline here, pipeline of the middleware. So request goes to this pipeline. So once this is done, it passes this to next object in the pipeline, and then it passes to next object in the pipeline. So once this is done, so then it goes to the router. So router actually matches the request using route collection and passes to the proper controller and function. So the router is actually built based on this. If you go to your route.web.php. So this is actually your routing table. The router actually messages your request and then it passes to the proper controller here. Actually, I also wanted to show you here as well. So here, if you go to kernel.handle, let me actually type into it so you can go through this kernel and HTTP kernel. So if we go here, kernel.handle, and so you can see like this is the place where actually send the request to router. So what it does is, so it creates a pipeline and set the request and send it, goes through all the middleware, and then once it passes all the middleware, then dispatch the request to the router. So router makes the decision and delegate this whole functionality to the application code, where application code actually generates the response, and then it starts flowing again to the pipeline and the response is sent to the user. So yeah, this code I already showed you. So what it does is Laravel actually create a pipeline object. So this pipeline object is exactly taking all the middleware and then executing your request to all the middleware. And after that, it actually send this request to the router. So next, so the use of middleware or type of middleware. So there are usually three types of middleware. So one is global middleware, which works on every request. Let me show you an example of the global middleware as well. So if you go to app kernel PHP, so you can actually find it here as well, app HTTP kernel. I am actually using the PHP SOM navigation, but you can actually go through this project as well. So this middleware is actually the global middleware. So for this actually, if you put any middleware here, for example, let's actually create this middleware, PHP artisan make middleware and test middleware. Okay. So now if we put our middleware here and we go to middleware and we actually dump request here, for example, we want to maybe echo something out, test middleware. And let's actually run this request here in the browser. So you can see like we get the test middleware here. So and this will be run on every request, like if either it goes to your API or it goes to your application code, like front-end code. So every request will pass through this middleware. So this you can consider as a global middleware, and this is how you add a middleware in the global middleware. So yeah, let me actually remove this because we don't need it. The second type of middleware is the routes middleware. You can apply this middleware to your routes. So to do this, we can actually go here and let's go to route.web.php. For example, this is my home route. So I just want to apply a middleware to only this guy. So to do this, we can actually write here instead, and we can chain another, and here we can write maybe a test middleware. So let me add this test middleware here again. So if you want to use a single middleware, you can actually go here and alias your middleware using any key you want to, and we can add our test middleware here. So let's go ahead and check it out, like if it does work on the home page or not. So go here. So now you can see on this page it will not work. It will only work on the home page. On the home page you will get this test middleware. So if you go to any other page, login page, categories page, you will not see it. So yeah, this is one way to apply. If you want to apply one middleware to a very specific route, you can do this as well. Let me actually remove this guy because we're going to. Okay, the third type of middleware I want to show is the group middleware. For example, you have a bunch of middlewares. First, let me show you the Laravel example, which is this one. So if you want, this is Laravel actually create two groups of middleware. One is web middleware and the other one is API middleware. All your web requests actually goes through this. If you go to route service provider, so you can see like all of your web requests, anything that you write in web.php, it goes through this web middleware group. So the concept of middleware group is like you can club different middlewares into one giant middleware group, and then you can pass it along. For example, if you don't want to do this, what you have to do is you will write alias for all these middlewares, and then you have to do something like this. Let me actually show you. So otherwise you will do something like this, web API auth maybe test. So instead of writing all of this, you can create different groups of middleware, and then you can apply based on your use case. So first, like we want the web request to go through all the web requests to go through this middleware. So that's why we create the Laravel created the web middleware. And yeah, that's all the concept that I wanted to show you for the middleware. Just one more thing that I want to show you before we go anywhere, and that is like, if you want to, for example, if you want to apply middleware to one specific controller only, we already seen like if you want to apply a request middleware to one route, but for example you want to apply this middleware to only one controller. So you go to the controller, you actually use this construct to add the middleware. So here you can pass the middleware. Here you can pass like maybe test. For example, now for all the routes in the home page, actually it will goes through this middleware. Let's actually test it out here as well. So here we can go to, for example, in the home route, this is the home route, so it will apply here. And this is also the home route, so test middleware will apply here. So if we go to the login page, which is not in the home route, home controller, so it will not be affect anything here. So yeah, this is one more concept that I want to show you, that you can apply middleware on your complete controller as well. And let's actually look at yeah, so now we want to look at, so as we already know, we have already discussed that, so the request actually goes to the, while incoming it goes to the middleware, and when it is outgoing, the response is generated from the app code, it goes again to the same pipeline. So you can intercept the request at both points, if the request is incoming and if the request is outgoing. For example, actually let's look at one example. For example, in the test middleware again, I just want to show you like okay, so this is where actually the request is incoming. So you can actually decompile this middleware into two parts, and this is the response, and here you can return the response, and this is the outgoing. So to understand this, this is when the middleware actually passes your request to the next object in the pipeline, or your application code, and the response is generated. So anything that you do here that is incoming, and anything that you actually write here that actually affect the outgoing response. For example, actually let's check here. So here you want to check if this IP is local or not. If the request is local, we don't want to send the response. So to do this, we will just check if the IP starts from 1 to 7. And so we want to show the 403 response. We don't want any request to serve from the local host. So if we go here, and now we have to apply this middleware to this group. So I will just go to kernel.php, and I will put it in our global middleware so that no request is served from localhost. Let's go ahead and do this. So as you can see, like we get the 403 forbidden page for all the applications. So this is what I wanted to tell you, that if you want to do something before the request, but this is not something that you want to do. So we can actually do something interesting here. So here, if the request is coming from local, we want to add another key into the request object that is local. True. Actually, we need to pass an array. I guess is local. So what it will do is it will add this key into the request object as well. So for example, if we go to home controller and we can check the request object, let's actually go to the home page and see. So now if we go here, actually we just need the request data. So for this we will do here, and let's actually check it out. So now you can see like we have this local point. So as you can see, like there is no data passed from the outside. So this you can actually add the check in before the middleware. And actually let's create another route here, and we will call it get test. So here we want to return the response JSON, and we just want to respond data and item first, and we want to also show is local. Here we can inject the request object, and that's all we need to do. And let's actually add the middleware to only this guy. Okay. And let's remove it from here. Okay. Now we can see, we can go to test route. Okay, now we can go to test route, and you can see like, so our data is here and the key is also here. Now you want to save the response, like you want to intercept the outgoing response. So we can do a check here as well. So if the request is local, and so you want to save the response to maybe some file, storage path and local response, and here you can put the response object. Okay, and let's check it out. If we refresh here, we should get a file in the storage. So yeah, we get the local response here. So now it has all the response. It has our response header as well, and also the response JSON here as well. So yeah, this is how you can actually intercept the before and after part of any middleware. So next thing that we want to look at is like you can also pass the parameter to middleware. So to show you an example, so we can go to middleware and you can pass the parameter using this syntax, like middleware name, colon, and then your parameter. For example, we can use 1 or 0 to enable or disable this behavior. So let's actually go to the middleware again, and to get the parameter here, you can just write here is enable, for example, so 1 or 0. So let's boolean and is enabled. This is just a typing thing. So here we can check if the middleware is enabled. Only do this check, and we will just abort 403, and here it's fine. So we are here just telling Laravel that if via this middleware parameter, that if the middleware is enabled, only then do this check. If it is not enabled, then do this check. Let's actually enable this and let's test it out in the browser. So you will get the 403 response. Now if we pass maybe 0, so it will fail and it will generate the response. So yeah, this is how you can actually pass the parameters to middleware. Usually we use this parameters in case of authentication or authorization, role checking as well here. For example, if you go to kernel here, you can see we can use parameter with the authentication, and we can use parameter with the throttling, and like to throttle. For example, for one request you only want maybe 60 requests per minute, so you can actually put the parameter to throttle like this. Throttle maybe 60 requests per minute. So you can go here in the parameter, and yeah, you can actually pass this. The parameter we pass will like be actually received here, and then it will restrict limit your request. So yeah, this is how you can actually use this middleware parameter. So the next thing I want to show you, this is one of very interesting feature of Laravel middleware. So you can actually write terminable middleware. So by terminable middleware, what I mean is like you want to do something after the response is sent to the browser. So you can actually use this in some use cases. For example, the use case I have found so far for this is like, for example, you want to log the response. So to write a terminable middleware, let's actually do this, and let's actually remove this guy and also remove this parameter. And let's go to this test middleware. So to use a terminable middleware, we can do this public function terminate, and it will receive both object. Let's actually type in these guys. Okay, so what happens is like after the response is sent to the browser, so you want to do something. What you can do here, for example, you want to enable a check. Okay, so the response is 200 or not. So if the response is 200, you want to log in the table that okay, you serve this request with 200 response, for example. So you will do something like this. For example, db. Let's actually show you an example. So maybe app response logs. and you want to insert some table. So you want to say like, okay, for this IP, you serve the response to what status code. So here you can align status code. You can actually get the whole response as well, but you don't need it because your application, your database size will grow exponentially with this, because response size is usually like, for each response size it will be like few hundred kilobytes, and you can think like if your application is serving like 50,000 requests, and then you can actually multiply it using 500 kilobytes, and it will be huge in like, but in the days I have actually tried it, and our database grew like nothing. So yeah, you don't want to log the response object. Usually we log the only response a status code, but if you want, you can actually log the response. So yeah, this is one of the use case, and but we don't have app response log table. So what we will do is, so we just want to, maybe we just want to log the request and response object after the request is terminated. So I just want to show you an example so that you know like how you can do it. We'll call it terminate request, and we'll log the request object, and then we'll do the same for the response. I'll create a response file. Okay, let's go ahead and check this now. Okay, so if we go here, we'll get the terminate request method which contain all the request parameter, and then we have response file which contain all them. So how this response work? So why, for example, let me actually show you. If you add any code here, so it will not appear in the browser. So this is the beauty of this terminable middleware. So it only executes after your response is sent to the browser. But how it does this is, let's actually check it out in the public index.php file. So this is usually what happens is, so your application response is sent to the browser through this method, and if you actually open it, so what happens is send the headers to the browser. So header is actually the legacy PHP header function that we use to send the header, and then the next thing is it actually send the content. So it send the content using echo. So it echo out all the HTML. So the HTML is sent to the browser. So the last thing what it does is, after the response is sent, so it actually check if the fast CGI finish request is enabled. So this is only enabled if you have fast CGI enabled in your server. So it is usually there in the Nginx. So actually it also say this in the middleware documentation as well. So it will only work if you have this fast CGI enabled, and then it will work. Because what happens with the fast CGI is, so when you call this fast CGI finish request, so it clear the output buffers and it disable the logger. So after that, if there is any code, so it will not be logged to the browser. So it actually clear out the loggers, and it clear out the buffer and disable the logger entirely. And that's why when you call the terminate method, so your application code or your terminate code is not executed in the browser, but you can still enjoy the request and response object, and you can do pretty much anything with it. So yeah, I think this is the end of this slide, and thank you guys for bearing with me. So let me know if you have any question or comment. I'll see you in the next video. Till then, bye bye, cheers.